So, Manur, Uvacha. I'm going to mess up a bit, so you're going to have to bear with me. Odeshiham, Bhagavato. Is it Adeshi? Adeshiham Bhagavato. Varteyamiva. Sudana. Vartayemiva Sudana. Stanam tva ihanu janihi. Sorry, I said stanam tva ihanu janihi. Prajanam mama cha prabhu. Prajanam mama cha prabhu. And we're going to just go to, we're going to read and then, because we're going to really do 18, because the Lord appears there, so we want to get the most love from that. Sri Manu said, "O powerful Lord, O killer of all sins, I shall abide by your order. Now please let me know my place and that of the living entities born of me." Can anybody relate? I mean, sometimes, I think I was probably around 60 when I finally quit saying I just really don't know who I'm going to be when I grow up. You know, I think I was about 60 years old when I quit saying that.
Oh, you got there?
Yeah.
Still working on it.
Are we going to chant the verse?
18.
We're going to chant 18.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm just relating to this, like we don't, it's saying Manur Uvacha, it's the Manu of that. It's interesting because it's actually, Gopi Pranadhan was talking about how it's jumping around, and as far as the different Manus are concerned in Bhagavatam, and he was talking about how in ninth canto we finally get up to this particular Manu, the Vivishvata Manu of our Manvantaras, because there's so many Manvantaras in a kalpa. So it's Sri Manu said, "O all-powerful Lord, O killer of all sins, I shall abide by your order. Now please let me know my place and that of the living entities born to me." I just wanted to make a note of how difficult it is, even for the Manu. He's in charge of that. He gives the laws for that particular period. He's asking, what is my place and what is the place of all the living entities born of me? So if he's having that identity crisis, of course we will too. Okay, we'll go on. Yad oka sarva bhutana mahi magna mahim basi yasya asya udarane yatno deva devya vidayatam. O Master of the demigods, please attempt to lift the earth, which is merged in the great water, because it is the dwelling place for all living entities. It can be done by your endeavor and by the mercy of the Lord. Purport. The great water mentioned in this connection is the Garbhodak ocean, which fills half of the universe. So just to recap a little, the earth has sunk. And it's because of Hiranaka's been drilling for oil way too much, and there's an imbalance, and the earth has sunk. So you can imagine, it's another kind of a water crisis, too much water, and it's difficult. So there needs to be some intervention, very much, the great need of intervention. Maitreya Uvacha Parameshva Tvi Apamadye Tata Sanam Avekshagam Katam Enam Samunisha Iti Dadyao Dya Chiram. Sri Maitreya said, thus seeing the earth merged in the water, Brahma gave his attention for a long time to how it could be lifted. Lord Brahma's getting involved. He's like, oh my goodness, there's a problem. Purport. According to Jiva Goswami, the topics delineated here are of different millenniums. The present topic are of Sweta Varaha millennium, and topics regarding the Chakshusha millennium will also be discussed in this chapter. Srajato me kshitir varbi plan plavyamana rashamgata atatra kim anusteyam asmabi sargayojitai yasyaham hridayad asam sa iso vidadatu me. Translation. Brahma thought, while I have been engaged in the process of creation, the earth has been inundated by a deluge and has gone down into the depths of the ocean. What can we do who are engaged in this matter of creation? It is best to let the Almighty direct us. Purport. The devotees of the Lord, who are all confidential servitors, are sometimes perplexed in the discharge of their respective duties, but they are never discouraged. They have full faith in the Lord, and He paves the way for the smooth progress of the devotee's duty. Text 18, this is the one we're going to all go together, chant together. Itya, iti, abhidyayato, nasa, iti abhidyayato nasa, vivarat, sahasanagha, varaha, toko, viragan, vivarat sahasanaga, vivarat sahasanaga, varaha toko niraga, angusta, parimanaka, angusta parimanaka, iti abhidyato nasa. How is that done when there's a dash there? Are we supposed to do both lines?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. Vivarat sahasanaga, varaha toko niragan, varaha toko niragan, angusta parimanaka, iti abhiyayato nasa, vivarat sahasanaga, saraha toko niraga, anugusta parimanaha, iti abhiyayato nasa, vivarat sahasanaga, viraha toko viraga, angusta parimanaka.
Ityayato nasa,
Ityayato nasa,
vivarat sahasanaga,
vivarat sahasanaga,
varaha toko niragan,
viraha toko niragan, anugasta parimanaka, ityayato nasa, Vivarat Sahasanaha Rahatoko Niragat Angusta Parimanakaha
Ityabhidhyayato nasa
Ityabhidhyayato nasa
Vivarat sahasanaga
Vivarat Sahasanaha
Varahatoko niragat
Virahatoko Niragat
Vishta parimanakaha
Angusta Parimanakaha Ityabhidhyayato nasa Vivarat Sahasanaha Rahatoko Niragat Angusta Parimanakaha Iti thus Abhidyayata
Abhidhyayata
while thinking
while thinking
Nasavira Vivarat
nasa vivarat
from the nostrils
from the nostrils
Sahasa
Sahasa
all of a sudden
all of a sudden
Anaga
Anaga
O sinless one
O sinless one
Viraha
Viraha
Toka
Kaha
a minute form of Varaha, a boar.
minute form of Brahma
Niragat
Niragat
came out.
came out
Anugasta,
Ushta
the upper portion of the thumb.
the upper portion of the tongue
Parimanakaha,
Parimanakaha
of the measurement. Translation and purport. Well, no purport, but translation by Srila Prabhupada. Yes, I can see why you said, why didn't I? But the Lord appeared. I just had to stop here. The Lord appeared. O sinless Vidura, all of a sudden, while Brahma was engaged in thinking, a small form of a boar came out of his nostril. The measurement of the creature was not more than the upper portion of a thumb. O sinless Vidura, all of a sudden, while Brahma
while Brahma
was engaged in thinking,
was engaged in thinking,
a small form of a boar
small form of a boar
came out of his nostril. The measurement of the creature was not more
was not more
than the upper portion
than the upper portion
of a thumb.
of a thumb.
It was little, very little. So, this is the appearance of Lord Varaha Dev. And he came for a particular purpose because the earth was in trouble. And I've been listening to Gopi Pranadhan's lectures on the subject. He's so sweetly humble and so knowledgeable. And he is saying how he's talking about actually that because it talks about the different manvantaras. There's so many manvantaras that happen within one kalpa. And in the Bhagavatam, it doesn't necessarily roll out chronologically. It's kind of skips around here and there. And he also talked about the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and how basically what the Bhagavatam is a cliff note version of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he said that in the 10th canto, there's 4,900 verses in 90 chapters. And not all of the pastimes of the Lord are listed there, because it's not possible, actually, to have all the pastimes of the Lord delineated. And he said that in the Vishnu Purana, there's 37 chapters of Krishna Lila, and some of the pastimes that are not mentioned in Bhagavad are mentioned there. So he was explaining that it's just like if you're taking a course on building You will go in and you will learn the basic principles of building, and you will learn how to frame out, and you'll learn how to do windows, and you'll learn how to do all these specific little things in building. Then you'll be able to build homes, you'll be able to build an assortment of architectural designs if you know the basic principles of building. And in this case, we have like the Cliff Note version of the pastimes. It's like we're looking through a little tiny keyhole. We're glimpsing the magnificent pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We're looking through a tiny keyhole. If we think we know everything about Krishna, oh my goodness, there's so much more. But we are being gifted, and he is revealing himself in the Bhagavatam and in the Vishnu Purana and all through the Vedic literatures. There's supplementary information on the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And from understanding the revealed scriptures, we can even go to the holy places and start to understand a little more about Krishna Lila. Just like if you get the basic principles of building, you will be able to build mansions. You can understand a lot more, especially by chanting. Because by chanting the holy names of Krishna, just as we had heard this morning in the Harinam Chintamani, that everything is condensed in the name of the Lord. Just like in a seed of a banyan, which is so tiny, the banyan seed is so tiny, a huge tree is within that seed. So in the Nam of Krishna, there's so much, everything's in the name of Krishna, everything. So this morning's Harinam Chintamani really made us want to chant our rounds real bad. It was like, oh yeah, okay, we're gonna get to know and feel and experience Krishna through his name, because everything is there. So here, the other point that he made that was really interesting is there's not, in the scriptures, there's only a few times where in the hierarchy of the creation, they actually go all the way to, he even said, like, to kind of dump their problems out on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Generally speaking, if they have difficulties, each and every single person who has a particular duty tries to figure them out for themselves. They try to solve the problem, they ponder over it, and they try to make the right decisions. And if they really can't decide, then they take it up the line one more, and they go to, and Lord Brahma, being the first created living entity, Lord Brahma was the one who people would, the Manus and the different demigods and everything will go to Lord Brahma and say, well, we're having a problem. The earth has sunk. And the Hiranaka, this great demon, he's been exploiting. And that's the problem, exploiting the earth, which we know right now is going on extensively. The exploitation of the mother seems to be the new norm. We're exploiting our dear, dear mother daily through polluting the rivers. It's like dumping toxins and trash and garbage into the veins of the Mother Earth. We're polluting her air. We're polluting the environment, air, water, all aspects of we're using fire to make horrible things. We think that these are necessities of life, but we have lost sight of the fact that we are supposed to be caregivers of our Mother Earth. And she takes care of us. If we take care of her, she takes care of us. But no, what we're doing is we're involving ourselves in industrial hellishness. Prabhupada said factory means, what did Prabhupada say? Factory means hell. Factory means hell. So since the world wars, we have gone into factory existence. It's become a life of opening up a factory to produce war materials, to produce canned goods, to produce industrial toxins that will be used in war, bombs. People started to open factories to create war things. They didn't have canned goods before. They didn't need canned goods. Everybody went to the market and bought fresh every day. They bought what they needed, They used what they needed. Mother Earth was flourishing. She was doing everything, she was providing everything for everyone. But because we're so busy with this industrial military complex war machine thing, we developed canned goods. Why? To get the food out to the soldiers that were out in the theaters of war. So we created these hellish things so we could feed warriors. We created hellish drugs, like methamphetamine was created by a Japanese pharmacologist to keep the German soldiers ephemeral and always wanting to fight and always heavily alert. They created all this hellish stuff for war. But the problem is, when the war was over, they just incorporated it back into the society. All of a sudden there's canned goods on the shelves, selling it to regular people. The farmers didn't need to be selling anymore, and it's kind of dried up. You had now industrial farms where there's farming 32,000 acres, or some huge amount of acreage. And they're using pesticides and chemicals instead of everything being farmed fresh. And this was supposed to be modern civilization. We're now advanced, guys. And we've just regressed back into some kind of hellish, horrible, mechanized situation. What are we doing? Practically, what are we doing to our mother in the process? Do you think our mother likes this? Drilling for oil. We had this tendency, we were whalers before. We fished out the oceans to the point where the whales were almost extinct. They were our source of light and candles. They used the whale oil. And then now we're just plumbing out the earth to suck all the oil out of it. Hironaka did it before. Shouldn't we learn from that experience that we can sink the earth? We can do something so bad for our mother that she's practically ready to die, practically just to sink in the causal ocean. This is sad. This is a sad state of affairs. So there's one large demon doing this business, and now the demigods are perplexed. And Lord Brahma's thinking deeply on it, long and deep. And while he's contemplating, the Lord's busy, he's going to take care of it. And he incarnates in a form that's just perfect to pick something up from a filthy place. We all know when we see the boars and the pigs in Vrindavan, we call it the pig pile-up. I know one day I was, when I used to go visit Raj for 3 months at a time, I used to always have a prayer that I would say every day. It would be the theme of my trip. And one of my prayers had the word comfort in it. And I was on the way to town, and I saw the most comfortable guys there, and they were the pigs all lounging in the mud. I went back and scratched the word comfort out of my prayer, just like, no, we don't want, because we're heading right for it, because it's interesting. You get what you pray for, so you better be careful. Really, I'm learning the hard way about that. I'm learning the hard way because we get exactly what we pray for. And it's better to let the Lord run it, because guess what? He knows best. We think we got our little hand on the remote control and we know best. But just as Lord Brahma was trying to contemplate this, Lord boar out of his nose, in a tiny little form. If you could show us that Siddhi thing. It's on the pen drive. Lord Boar came, and he had the Siddhi of anima. It's to become very, very small and then become very, very big. Actually, the Lord can do anything. May not be. I just had to look up the Siddhis, because I don't know about you. When I was young, and I read Autobiography of a Yogi. Oh, can I go down so we can see it bigger? Smaller, like make it, condense it little. Yeah, so we can see it. I was infatuated with the mystic siddhis. After reading Autobiography of a Yogi, I was like, oh yeah, I'll have what he's having. Mystic siddhis, definitely. I need some of them back. I was really like, yes, I'm going to become enlightened and have all the siddhis, and then I'll be good. then I'll be good. If I'm in really good control of myself and really good control of my senses and really good control, then I'll have mystic powers. I'm really all about that. I was an impersonalist. I was distributing a book called The Impersonal Life. I bought it in cases and was distributing it. It was like all wrong, you know. It's like totally dovetailing, but not in the right way. Prabhupada really saved me. So I was interested, kind of mad after mystic siddhis. And this is a little chart here about the different mystic siddhis and how, if you really, really want them, the avenue in which to get it. Just like if you want to manifest anything you want at any given time, to do that, you always have to tell the truth. And right now in the world today, there's so many motivational speakers telling you how to get what you want, right? How to succeed in the world. And it's interesting because it correlates with the very last leg of religiosity, and that is honesty. So it's all there is left of spirit of religious life now. We've got the 4 legs of the bull of Dharma, and being honest is something that we're trying to do, you know, that, and people are still being honest to them, for pious people are being honest. And so consequently, there's big lectures on how to get what you want. You just focus your mind and you really, and it's true, it works. But all I can say for the devotees is be very careful. Because the Lord has a great sense of humor. Just look at him, he appeared out of Lord Brahma's nose. As a boar, as a pig. Is that not a sense of humor? If you ask me, that's the Lord having a really great sense of humor. And he comes so tiny and then he comes so huge. All of a sudden he becomes gigantic and he dives down under the ocean because all the inhabitants of Earth are praying, help, 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 help. And the demigods are going, help these guys too, because they do all these sacrifices in which we get the benefits of. And we want them to get help because our tax deal is running out. You know, we need them to be able to be functioning. So everybody's praying. And the Lord appears as a large pig. And everyone's going, oh my goodness, a pig, what's he gonna? Well, he does the job. He goes down, he comes up with the earth on his tusks. And Hiranaka's not happy about it. He's like, who's interfering with my trip? Like, not having it. So he gets his club out and he's like, how dare this pig think he can do this? So they start this warfare match, clubbing one another, fighting with each other. And I won't go on with that too much because that's coming. That's like a preview of the coming attractions. But still, the Lord, he's so interesting and so amazing how he comes and he defeats any of our potential imaginations of how he might come or how he might solve a problem. It's always a little different than we could ever think of. He always is inconceivable. And he solves a problem in such a way that we can't even imagine it. But if we have faith, we know, just like Queen Kunti is saying, I would rather have countless challenges because I know you're there to save me than be all cushy and think you're somewhere far from me. I want you with me. I like the challenge. I love you. It's mainly she loves the Lord's presence. And each and every single one of us, we're so fortunate. That was one of the things that Gopi Pranadhan was talking about, the different residences of the Lord that the demigods could go to approach the Lord when things really got hairy. There's always huge fights between the demons and the demigods in the course of matter of creation. And the Lord appears to take care of business. He comes as a dwarf. He comes in the most unlikely forms. He comes in as a tortoise. It's like, what? But he comes in exactly the way you would least expect it to solve a problem, like a dwarf. He's a dwarf mendicant, like Brahmin. And nobody would think he would take everything in all of creation. He's just like a little dwarf. And even Bali Maharaj is saying, 3 steps? You want 3 steps of land? That's nothing. And you're a dwarf. What can you do with 3 little tiny steps? So the Lord is always inconceivable, always shocking, always takes it beyond the scope of our concept, any conception that we might have. So, yes, I kind of covered everything that I have in my notes here. So Lord Varaha has appeared, and here, if you look at this chart, it's very interesting about the mystic cities, because that was something, I had to get over that. The fact of the matter is, if one becomes a pure devotee of Krishna, Vidhi, which is knowledge, and Siddhi, which is powers, stand with folded hands at the door of the devotee to serve them. And Prabhupada, it's like they're not attracted or interested or bewildered by thinking, oh, look it, I'm all powerful, I've got all this going. No, the devotee only wants to serve Krishna, is only interested in the pleasure of the Lord's pleasure alone, because they know that if the Lord is pleased, we're his part and parcel. Then we're pleased, we're connected. And I've had the experience where when you serve another person and you see their satisfaction and contentment, you also become peaceful, and you also relish when you see that. What to speak of the supreme person? You please the Lord and you get a smile or a laugh. Wow. Nothing matters. It's like your life is successful, completely successful. And these Mahajans, with their big challenges that they go through, like Grandfather Bhishma, he wouldn't even leave his body, even though he was shot full of arrows, until he saw Krishna, until he got Krishna's darshan. Jai Shri Shri Panchatattva Ki Jai. So for all of us, the satisfaction of our senses only happens when we are geared towards the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. Our senses are paltry, demanding, and they're never satisfied. They always want more. More. Ugh. And it never pleases us. Never. We're never, ever satisfied. That's the problem. But if we satisfy Krishna, then we're automatically satisfied. So it's a beautiful, wonderful thing, and if we use those siddhis and the knowledge to preach the glories of the Lord, then we're connected. We're a ray of Vishnu. We're connected to the Lord. It's the perfection of existence. So, are there any questions or comments?
You mentioned something about the whales. What was that exactly? About the whale fish or fish oil.
What?
About fishing, you mentioned something about fishing, like too much fishing, and then something about the whale oil.
Oh, whale oil, right. In the 1800s, the human beings were getting energy to make light from fishing the oceans for whales. Whale oil was a great industry. And then when they discovered oil in the ground in about 1850, and they had almost fished out, almost depleted and whales were going extinct. So we have this way of exploiting intensely. So whales, yes, whales are now making a little bit of a comeback, but we're seeing the difficulty of petrochemical pollution in the world, and they're talking about environmental control and going more into electric and solar and other forms of energy, because petrochemical has had total drawbacks. And they've used it in pesticides, they use it as fuel, they use it in plastics, they use it in so many things, but it doesn't break down very quickly. It's not biodegradable to the point where it can regenerate the earth. It smothers the earth. So we've been drilling, bringing it up and thinking that we can use it, but it hasn't actually been really good for us in the long term. Plus, we're also to the point where we're looking, its prices are going up and away. You know, it's one thing, moderation, but we never do anything moderately. We take everything to an industrial level, a hellish level, overdoing everything. But as Gandhi said, to think globally and act locally. If we had a more cottage villagey concept, then there would be balance. But we don't do this. We bunch up and make do these mass industrial farms, mass industrial slaughterhouses. So we have to have war. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you for the
Kirtan.
very nice class. It's so relevant to the times that we live in because just about the difficulties with overuse of oil and disease nature is, you know, basically that's been talked about as climate change and other heats up because of overconsumption of these things. And as you just stated you have a quote from Gandhi also just quote that the world has enough for everyone's need, but not enough for everyone's greed. And it's amazing how Prabhupada had the solutions to the world problems today of simple living and higher thinking. But, you know, as we stand within Iskcon, and the Vaishnavas, it's a very small percentage compared to the world that we live in. So it's very relevant to the times that we live in. So much so that, you know, it's almost you're just kind of giving us a highlight, just a touch of the difficulties we have now, but if people don't change their habits, it'll get a lot worse.
Oh, we could sink the earth. And I wanted to thank you for coming to class. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so
Hare
much.
Krishna. Yeah, we could sink earth. I mean, we're already doing so much. The imbalances are becoming so obvious that it requires acts of God, catastrophic acts of God to clean up the messes we make. It's sad. But clean up the mess he does.
Interesting enough, it really kind of starts, like we think about these external sources, but it's really an internal source, because people are self-satisfied. And within, they don't want to overconsume, they don't want to exploit other things. So it's interesting that even though Bhagawatam is so ancient, it's so relevant to the times that we live in now, that's really about working from within. And then ultimately, if we're satisfied within, everything else is taken care of.
Absolutely. Yes, very good point, Kirtan. Wonderful.
We also had a big problem with the single-use plastic back in India.
Single-use plastic
So
in
the
India.
new government, they banned it, which is good in that sense. But I remember when I was growing up, we didn't have this, and just within a short time, we had this plastic and so much mess. You know, I remember when I used to go buy yogurt in the market, so we'll carry over like a container, and we'll not like get it in a plastic bag.
Well, when we first went to India, India wasn't using plastic.
Yeah, but that was like later creation in the sense like
Right.
90s, right? Came up
Well,
with this.
what happened was LA was really polluted, and everywhere in the United States was overwhelmed with plastic. And so when I first went to India, India was pristine. They would use clay cups and leaf plates, and I was like, India has solved the problem. They've not gone into plastic. This was in the 70s. And then after going back in the 90s, we had stopped using all of these things, and they were using styrofoam and plastic, and everywhere was like a dump, plastic wasteland. And it's been heartbreaking to see the plague of westernization befall itself upon the beautiful land of India and the holy places, like little plastic teacups, and it's like snow with the plastic teacups, hundreds and thousands of plastic teacups on the parikrama mark, like after parikrama, after the full moon, after any holy day where there's a big parikrama. They think nothing of just drinking the tea in these little cups. They used to always use clay. And that clay went right back into the earth. Plastic takes how long to, something like 300 years to break down. We don't have 300 years and we don't have another planet to move over to until that's getting biodegraded. So some horrible natural disaster has to come to clean up our disaster, what we've done. It's most sad. One of the beauties of being old is you see many generations of things that have taken place, and you've seen, people like, I was just looking at the AQI yesterday, Air Quality Index, and while LA used to be just completely like a pocket of smog, the AQI that we were looking at yesterday was 28, and Delhi was 288. Over 10 times the pollution in Delhi. Used to be the opposite. But we've changed places, that we need to put it in the protections for the holy places. Unfortunately, India has gone the way of industry. And it's most sad, actually. Hare Krishna. Most sad to see the holy places suffering like this. Hare Krishna. Glories to the God. Srimad Bhagawatam ki jai.